Great, great. Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Lucas Stewart, and this is our webinar on AI governance connectors, common integration types, and the need for flexibility in AI governance. I'm joined by our Senior Technical Product Manager, Katie Spalding. Katie, do you want to shortly introduce yourself and talk about why you're here on our connectors and integrations webinar?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I am thrilled to be here with you today. I am heading up our integration and extensibility efforts at Credo AI, and I'm really looking forward to describing to you all, the concept behind our integration story and what that means for all of our customers.
Amazing. Yeah, it's a really exciting space we're in. I'm gonna dive into a little bit about the AI governance ecosystem to kick us off. So a little bit on I always love, kind of the latest, August 2024, what are people saying about AI governance? What are the trends? Show you a bird's eye view of the best practice enterprise AI governance workflow and how that translates to a platform. But what we're really going to get into today is the different integration types that you need, data in, data out, that you need to connect to over the AI governance lifecycle to ultimately arrive at continuous and scalable AI governance that's built for the future and everything that entails. And Katie will be delivering that second portion of our webinar. And then we will have a few minutes probably for Q&A at the end. This is an integrations webinar. Obviously, you may have specific questions on a particular integration or something like that. I think at minimum, we could tell you what integration type that would be. But if you have any AI governance questions overall, in addition to integrations questions, feel free to submit them in the Q&A feature in the Zoom menu. And so while I'm talking, Katie might be answering some. While she's talking, I might be answering live. But at the very end, we will get to your question and address it live. So that's how the Q&A works here. All right, let's get into it. So part one, the AI governance ecosystem. I'm just going to show you a current snapshot of this fast evolving space that we're in. First of all, kind of the latest AI governance trends. This insight I found really interesting from an Arise report on called The Rise of Generative AI in SEC Filings. So what you see here is on the left top quadrant, the number of Fortune 500 companies who have mentioned generative AI in their annual financial reports. And then the number to the right of it is the number of Fortune 500s that have cited AI as a potential risk factor since 2022. So everybody knows that you want to name drop Gen AI in your financial reports to show that you're on the latest trend and you're innovative. But double the rate of the mentioning of generative AI is actually the citing of AI as a risk factor. So you could say that risk awareness is even outpacing excitement for generative AI right now. And this is not financial advice, but that has had a kind of sobering effect on markets. And won't get into that, although it's something I'm really interested in. But a lot of these SEC filings, you're now hearing all of the risks of generative AI, kind of following all of the excitement. So interesting insight from today, from this month. So let's take a step back. And at Credo AI, we certainly care about AI risk. That is primarily what we are addressing in a multitude of ways. And I really thought about it, and I think that AI governance is really at the heart of the AI ecosystem. So there's a lot happening out there, and Credo AI, like all of us who work here, are kind of a conduit for what's happening in the AI space overall. And that's connecting, everything happening on the technology side from ML ops to LLM ops with everything happening on the compliance, regulatory, and best practices side. And so that's those kind of, I won't call them opposing forces, but those forces are united in our platform. And our mission at Credo AI is to ensure that AI is always in service of humanity. And our platform enables companies to procure, develop, and use AI responsibly, AI that is compliant, safe, secure, fair, and human-centered. So that is, it's a tall order. And we're going to get into the nitty-gritty on this webinar and explain at each step of making AI, compliant, safe, secure, what do the actual integrations and connectors look like to your systems to ensure that you're governing AI responsibly? So I want to illustrate the best practice enterprise AI governance workflow because each of these steps kind of indicates a job to be done in AI governance. I'm not going to get too deep into this today, but from use case intake to defining requirements, risk evaluation, risk mitigating controls, and then in managing your risk and compliance into gather evidence, generate reports, and ongoing audits and monitoring. These are all at Credo AI what we have determined to be critical and best practice steps for a comprehensive enterprise AI governance workflow. This is not a one and done operation. You know, AI governance is continuous. That's where integrations become critical. You know, data in, data out. Certain integrations can be a one-time thing, but certain integrations require kind of a real-time and daily continuous data flow. So the Credo AI platform is where we operationalize that workflow that I just showed. So on the top, we have our policy ecosystem where we say we translate AI policy into code within our platform. So that's not something that our customers have to do or understand. But on the AI and data side from our customers, there's just a multitude of tools and, you know, enterprises are adding AI tools every day. Model versions are being updated that dramatically change the game. And so there's kind of a multitude of tools to stay connected to and aware of that then get integrated into our platform. And you know, your AI governance team takes your AI use case or system through the steps of the AI governance workflow. And all this to say, sorry, we're going to now cover the integration types that are necessary along the way, where each step of the AI governance workflow is a little bit different. So hopefully through these 5 integration types that Katie's going to cover, you get a better sense of how the AI governance process works and which teams you'll actually be interfacing with. Ideally, because the entire point of a platform is to reduce the burden on engineering teams through integrations.
Awesome.
Katie?
I will now walk us through these 5 individual integration types and the jobs to be done that they support across that entire ideal workflow that Lucas just walked you through. So here are our 5 AI governance connector types that we've identified, and they are in chronological prioritized order. So when you are first onboarding onto your Credo AI platform, we want you to think about these from 1 to 5. First, we want you to think about use case import. So are your submitters, your use case submitters, used to submitting use cases in a system outside of your AI governance platform? If so, connect Credo AI to that system. Then do the same line of thinking for your model stores. Let's make sure Credo AI is connected to every model store that your model teams are already very used to living and breathing in. Next, we want you to think about how to make sure technical evidence required by certain laws, regulation, and policies are automatically pulled in, and Credo AI will build and deploy those integrations for you. Next, think about your data sets. Are you governing your data sets in another system like a Calibra? If so, make sure that the governance decisions made on those data sets is automatically pulled into Credo AI through our dataset connection APIs and integrations. And then lastly, make sure that you're pushing any GRC artifacts generated within your AI governance system into your traditional GRCs. We're now going to take these one by one, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the teams involved with all 5 and, you know, the value that each of these 5 support. So let's first begin with use case intake. If your use case submitters are already, for instance, using Jira in order to track and log the systems within which they want to build new AI models or deploy AI systems or use an LLM to, let's say, build an internal chatbot. If they're already used to logging those use cases in Jira, then there's no reason to have them go learn a new system like Credo AI and disrupt their workflow. Instead, leverage our Jira Credo AI integration in order to pull those issues where they are tracking use cases into Credo AI as AI use cases in the AI registry. We want to make sure that we are not incurring any additional burden on your use case submitters. If they are used to using another system to submit use cases and track use cases there, great. Let Credo AI do the rest of the work and pull each of those tickets or issues or opportunities in a CRM into Credo AI to populate the AI registry. The important piece to underscore here is that one of the very first pieces you want to make sure you get under your belt when you're instantiating an AI governance process is that your AI governance tool should have a completely comprehensive view of all AI use cases proposed or deployed at your organization. And the single best way to make sure that view is comprehensive is through integration. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the same concept, but for generating and maintaining your model registry in Credo AI. So just like your AI registry should be a comprehensive view of every AI use case at your organization, your model registry, which is the second tab down in Credo AI on the left-hand nav, should be a comprehensive view of every model being trained, worked on, deployed at your organization. And that concept exists for both traditional ML and AI models, as well as LLMs. You can leverage our model upload integrations and connectors in order to meet each of your model teams where they already live and breathe. So you'd be leveraging our Databricks integration to get this done, our SageMaker integration to get this done, our forthcoming Bedrock integration to get this done. We want to make sure that Credo AI is a comprehensive view of all models in your organization because Credo AI is distinctively not an LLM ops or ML ops tool. We integrate with each of those model stores. We sit above each of those tools. So your model teams will continue to work as they do in Databricks or Azure ML or SageMaker. And then Credo AI will pull each of those models into the model registry. From there, the important difference in Credo AI is that we will then associate each of those models with individual use cases because GPT-4 deployed as a tool to help your marketers write a blog post is going to need to be governed very differently than GPT-4 used to deploy an external chatbot in your product itself. So we want to make sure we are helping your governance teams govern every model associated with a different use case as comprehensively as possible. Great. Next comes evidence ingestion. So those first two categories are helping you set up the foundation of your AI governance process. We are populating your AI registry. We're populating your model registry. We're making sure that both of those registries are a completely comprehensive view. And that alone for a lot of our customers is a massive value add. They've often never seen a comprehensive view of use cases and models before. After we get that under our belt, we want to then start to govern individual use cases, right? We want to make sure, GPT-4 for an external chatbot deployed in product is governed properly. What we want to do then is go ahead and automatically pull in technical evidence against controls wherever necessary across the lifecycle of an AI use case. So let's say your use case called HR candidate scoring requires compliance with New York City Local Law 144. And let's say New York City Local Law 144 dictates that your demographic parity ratio fall within an acceptable range and not outside of that range. Your AI governance team is then going to think, okay, well, how do we go get that demographic parity ratio score? Where does that live? Our evidence ingestion integrations do that work for you. A great example are the control docs the Credo AI platform supports in order to connect a Jupyter notebook and the statistical analysis happening in a Jupyter notebook into Credo AI. So the way this works is your teams will go ahead and copy and paste a snippet of code and paste that snippet of code into their Jupyter notebooks where they're already running a bunch of statistical analysis about these particular models. That snippet of code will help them generate the demographic parity ratio. That snippet of code will then also pull that score directly into the control that requests that score. And that control will then, or that score will then help your AI governance team make a decision, a no-go decision on this particular use case. You might want to go back to your model teams then and say, hey, the demographic parity ratio score on this particular model has fallen outside acceptable bounds. What can we do here, right? What can we do to make sure we are compliant with New York City Local Law 144? And then next, we want to start to think about how to make sure that the governance decisions being made in separate tools around data sets are properly reflected in Credo AI. Because data set governance is a standalone component of AI governance, but it is not comprehensive enough to really instantiate an AI governance process. So data set governance is a component of what you'll do in Credo AI, but it is not the whole thing. Your teams might be making go, no-go decisions on data sets in tools like Calibra. And in those tools, we might be evaluating whether or not a particular data set is biased. And if it is, then we might decide to scratch that data set and actually scratch any use case that pulls that data set or that trains their models on that data set. Because of course, we all know models are only as strong as the data they are trained on. Our data set connection connectors are really going to be supporting this process. You can leverage our forthcoming Calibra integration, for instance, to populate a data set registry in Credo AI. Credo AI will then associate, and your governance teams in Credo AI will then start to associate use cases to governance, to data sets, just the same way we do to models today. And then lastly, number 5, our GRC artifact integrations. As you start to really govern use cases in Credo AI, you will then start to generate what we think of as GRC artifacts within your AI governance tool. A great example of a GRC artifact is a compliance report against your completion of or compliance against the New York City Local Law 144 or the EUAI Act, let's say. Once you start to really wrap your arms around your AI governance process and you are governing use cases end to end, so you are making decisions about use cases that are acceptable, use cases that are acceptable with conditions, and use cases that are rejected, you will have enough data to then share with other external stakeholders about how compliant you are with New York City Local Law 144. Those teams are likely already living in a OneTrust or a traditional GRC platform. It is really important that those teams are kept up to date with the governance decisions and the goings-on of governance and risk analysis happening in Credo AI. These integrations, our GRC artifact integrations, will actually push GRC artifacts and decisions made in Credo AI into those traditional GRC tools. And for this, in this way, we are making sure that all teams that need to be kept up to date with AI governance decisions are kept up to date and on the same page, but we are doing that work for you. We're making sure that the proper data is pushed from Credo AI to your traditional GRC tools. Now that we've talked through all 5 categories of integrations, I really briefly want to underscore that extensibility is a key differentiator at Credo AI. If we return to this ideal workflow that Lucas walked us through just a few moments ago, we want to underscore how every single step of this AI governance workflow might touch different systems used by different teams. This is one of the uniquely complex pieces of an AI governance flow. at an enterprise level. Your AI governance team needs to make sure they are in lockstep with your submitters, which might be AI product managers, and your model teams, which might be machine learning engineers or data scientists. That's a quite large landscape for your AI governance teams to span. Credo AI's integrations do that spanning for you. We want to make sure that we are compatible with any tech stack our customers bring us. And for that reason, we want to, we will pull in data across any system that is touching any piece of this workflow. This now underscores the need for an extensible AI governance platform to ensure that every AI system is actually governed responsibly. We will be responsible for helping you define the standardization of governance across each of these platforms. And Credo AI was actually uniquely built to be extensible in this way. We are the most extensible AI GRC product on the market. We were built to be able to connect to the tech stack you bring us. In this way, we are making sure through integration that your teams need not incur any additional burden in order to facilitate a seamless AI governance process. Credo AI integrations do that for you, and we let you get to the important work of deploying and maintaining responsible AI. Great. I think we might have time for a few questions.
Thank you so much, Katie. So well spoken, especially at the end. All of those logos of different tools are logos that are tools that we've encountered at some point. Credo AI working with our customers. So there are so many tools out there, and that's why we bucketed different integration types into these 5 core reasons for being. The why behind, like, why do you need to connect to this tool? So hopefully that high level view of, the ideal enterprise AI governance workflow and the comprehensive responsible AI stack of all these different tools, hopefully that shows the bigger picture, while, the more nuanced picture for any particular customer, depending on your risk level and your industry, will look, uniquely your own. So for questions, I was thinking of getting to them live during the call, but Zoom interface is giving me an issue. Are you able to open up the questions, Katie?
Yes, and I can actually go ahead and take this first question.
Great.
Live. Would this step include model cards tracking of models used by external vendors / in third-party AI tools? Yeah, this is a fantastic question. So I believe this attendee was asking about our model ingestion use cases for integration connectors. So we are at Credo AI in the middle of planning to release what we think of as a vendor registry. And in that vendor registry, folks will be able to make go, no-go decisions on vendors, which are at the level of model vendors and LLM vendors. We do today support model cards in Credo AI. So these model ingestion integrations should actually end with a completed model card in your model registry for, let's say, GPT-4. So our SageMaker integration is a really good example of this. If you are generating enough information in your SageMaker model store to come up with a model card, Credo AI's SageMaker integration will actually consolidate all that model metadata for you and generate a model card inside Credo AI from data stored in and generated in SageMaker.
And on the vendor registry, depending on what this question asker means by model cards, I'm in product marketing here, so we have a really exciting launch of our vendor registry coming up in about 2 weeks, and I'll make sure that everyone who registered for this webinar hears about that. So feel free to wait until then and then ask us more specific questions based on what the vendor registry is. But I'm very excited about this launch. And sorry to just call you question asker. I cannot see the Q&A for some reason, Katie. So I'm kind of putting all this on you. If you want to
No
just
worries.
uh, throw me questions that are
Of
more
course, yes,
specific to business or a launch, I'm happy to take them. Doing it live.
absolutely. Yeah, let's chat about this next one. Do you have this deployed across different industries? And I assume that this attendee is discussing, just chatting about, AI governance as a philosophy. Is it deployed across industries? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. We work with a lot of global 2000s. So that covers health and life sciences, that covers the financial industry. We're also working with a lot of retail customers. We span many industries, and I think that really underscores the hold that AI risk and compliance has on pretty much every market in the world right now. Folks want to make sure that they are not both missing out on this Gen AI wave, but they are also not going to be incurring any additional or undue business risk by deploying an AI or Gen AI strategy. I think that's where Credo AI actually becomes a really pertinent tool across almost every market in the world.
Yep. And to add some transparency to that, Credo AI, when we started out, we thought, okay, the regulated industries are going to require the most AI governance and most urgently, like, finance and healthcare. And so we definitely work with those regulated industries. But what we're seeing from legislation like the EU AI Act is that your, high risk AI doesn't really map perfectly just to the regulated industries. You may have really high risk AI and you might not realize it. And of course, that doesn't mean you shouldn't govern your low risk AI, because really even the most simple application tool and chatbot these days might use the most powerful foundational model on the market. So it's important to kind of know your risk level and your use cases in addition to your industry.
Definitely. Definitely. We also have a follow-up question from that first attendee. They said, I meant tracking not the vendors, but their products and the details of their architecture. That's a very fair point. So we at Credo AI are going to be orienting ourselves around the components of the AI governance system that most matter to our customers. And one of those next components are vendors that we've heard quite often. And then after that is applications. So applications and products are really sometimes the output of these vendors, right? We will make sure that folks can govern applications, models, vendors, and use cases all within the Credo AI platform. We have a question on what is your pricing or licensing model? Is it usage-based? I think this is a perfect question to answer async. We can go ahead and share our pricing page with you all after this call, and we will also make sure we have another question about whether or not we can share the content of this presentation live, and we will.
Yep, I'll be sending out the slides and recording to everyone who registered.
Next question, is the Credo platform on-premise software? Yes, it is. We offer two modes of deployment, a SaaS deployment or an on-prem deployment. And that decision really comes down to our customer needs. So both are possible. Okay, let's see. We've got another one. Curious, one submission just says most use cases are third-party AI purchases, and we are completely in alignment with that sentiment. We hear from a lot of our customers and prospects that third-party Gen AI application governance is the most top of mind thing for a lot of folks right now. A lot of folks feel maybe really comfortable with their traditional ML strategy, but Gen AI is shaking up this entire equation. How do we make sure Credo AI is well positioned to let folks log in and say, okay, I want to go use, let's say, Claude for this really well-known use case internally. Maybe that's helping me generate a blog post content. Credo AI will very soon be able to show those submitters very similar use cases. So you might be using Claude for the first time for this blog post, but maybe a lot of your colleagues have already requested to use Claude for that exact same thing. We can show you other use cases that look like yours that have already been approved or denied and help you expedite those really low risk use cases as quickly as possible. One of our philosophies at Credo AI is that most of your attention and resourcing should be put towards evaluating those high risk use cases, but medium and low risk use cases are often quite easy to govern. We want to make sure those fly right through the expedited track, if you will, because we don't want your AI governance process to incur more burden than it ever has to. AI governance should really be an efficient, easy to use process.
And may I add to that?
Yes, please.
It's so funny I can't see the question, so I just want to jump in.
Please.
Yeah, so this relates to the vendor registry as well, the governance of third-party Gen AI. And I think about maybe 2 years ago, how I won't name names, but certain big Fortune 100 companies, like a certain large bank, banned an entire generative AI vendor, but the way they did it is by emailing their employees. So you had you saw a couple of these blanket bans of a certain generative AI vendor come out because of the risk level, and it was like delivered via an email. You can't track whether people are complying with that. Like you don't, you it's obviously that's a little bit messy, and that's not a good way to do AI governance. And so the vendor registry will allow enterprises to greenlight entire vendors for a particular use case or for their company overall. So the third-party generative AI governance, it does have a lot to do with the vendor registry, even though we are going to get more into the actual application level governance, as Katie mentioned.
Absolutely. Okay, great. That is the bulk of our questions.
Great. I will I will be able to see the questions after this recording completes. So I'll follow up via email on questions that we didn't get to. I do say there's a good amount. But thank you so much for joining me, Katie, and for everyone jumping on this call. Feel free to reach out to us if you want to hear about our platform overall, specific integrations, or any sound bites that we brought up on this webinar. Everyone have a